Hello and welcome to another huge update video in which I'm going to be interviewing the CEO of Image and Form. I'm not going to even try and say your name. I had a look at it and I tried it, and I'm not having any success. So please introduce yourself.
Sure, it's that's the worst name in the industry. I think it's Brjann Sigurgeirsson, but you can. Bryann is actually the same name. It's the British people that misspelled it at one point, and then I just decided to stick with it when I'm speaking English. So Bryann is good, yeah.
Okay, so welcome, Bryann.
Thank you, thank you.
So I want to kick off this interview. We're just talking about like the history of the company and your philosophy of blue ocean, the blue ocean idea.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good topic. Yeah. So Image and Form, it's not by any standards like a new company. I started Image and Form back in 1997, and it was for the longest time we weren't making computer games at all or video games. It was graphic design and web programming and what have you. Even before, 97, the web, the internet had just barely started. So at that point, we were still making like multimedia presentations and stuff. And then somewhere around 2001, 2002, we got an inquiry from a Norwegian publisher to sort of save one of their kids' games that where the developer had gone bankrupt, basically. And it's just they had a short while left on the game, and so they asked if I could just program the last bit of it, and it was just so gratifying to do that. I mean, if you're used to programming websites, then it's a pain in the butt when the pixels don't end up where you want them and so on. And here was this just instant gratification all over the place with making games. So I thought, okay, this has to become the main focus for Image and Form, to be a game developer.
Yeah.
And so we made I think we made close to 30 children's titles up until 2009. And creatively, it was just suicide because we were so bored with it after a while that we were just coming up with ideas of how to kill this kid's character. And so when the App Store came about, we decided to jump on that and make our own games for not necessarily an audience of children anymore. So we started making grown-up games without being particularly violent or anything. And then we did that for a while, and we made some not so great mobile games. And then we made a great one called Anthill in 2011. And then when we made that game, we thought we were just untouchable after that. Anything we would make would be just automatically really fantastic. But as it turned out, it was really hard. We prototyped a lot of mobile games, but mobile was changing at that point. It was sort of the scales were tipping from premium to free to play and so on. And we were looking at the free to play games of that time, and we just thought they were so simplified in order to sort of retain the people playing. The games were really, really simple, we thought. And also we didn't understand this model of sort of constantly standing over the player's shoulder, asking them for money. And so we decided instead that we would make a game for the Nintendo DSi, which was out at the time. The 3DS hadn't come yet. And Nintendo was doing a parallel thing to the App Store. They had the DSiWare store where you could buy games. And it was a huge difference because like there were so few games out for the DSiWare store. And so for some reason, the game that we made called SteamWorld Tower Defense, it paid for itself without any particular PR or marketing efforts that we made. So it was just a very, very different type of marketplace. And so when we were done with that game and decided to leave mobile, it was kind of obvious for us to go to the 3DS first because we didn't know anyone at Microsoft or Sony or Valve. But we had an email address to someone at Nintendo. So we we got the 3DS kits and started making this game called Steamworld Dig, and it went really well, and we sort of pushed that out to all the other platforms subsequently, and that's where this blue ocean thinking comes in, because I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of the blue ocean versus
red ocean,
right? Where the red ocean is where you have like a finite market space, where if you have put your product out and sort of mooch off someone else's sales, sort of take shares of the market that way, that means someone else is losing money. So it's what we're thinking is the number of players is growing so rapidly. There are so many new players coming the whole time that you can't really talk about like just a sort of a defined space. It's sort of growing the whole time. And one good way of doing that, we think, is that developing games is really expensive, but porting them to other platforms is relatively cheap. So if you can have a game out for as many platforms as possible, that can become your own sort of, or your version of the blue ocean.
Right. Because this all comes from your GDC talk that you did earlier this year. And one of the things that I always is one of the main reasons I want to talk to you the most is you get around. Like you go to almost every convention that, like, some that I've not even heard of. Like, you went to, what was it, in Dubai that you went to?
I went to in Dubai. They have a Comic-Con that I haven't visited. So this was actually in Kuwait. I was in, and that was super interesting. And it was just let me tell you about that in just a few minutes, because it was. I've been there 2 years in a row now, 2014 and 2015 at the GX Expo in Kuwait City. And what happened was there was just this one gamer who had played Steamworld Dig on the 3DS and thought it was a great game. And he was a Kuwaiti, and him and two of his buddies were going to Gamescom 2013. And he said, let's just meet up and just want to shake your hand. And those what do you call them? Those occasions where you meet with fans, it can get pretty awkward, you know. It's like we're not rock stars, or we don't view ourselves as anything remotely like that. So it's kind of strange when someone comes up to you and says, "Guy, man, you're so awesome," and say, "Thank you, that's very kind of you," and then they repeat it, and it becomes. It's not a conversation. It's a very strange situation. So I sort of quickly try to steer it over to what they're all about. So and it turned out that those three guys, they're running this expo in Kuwait, and they're having all kinds of obstacles and hurdles because of the way the society is built there. It's not in any way. Or it's a lot less strict than you would think, but like it's still a country where mom and dad wants you to grow up to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Yeah. If you're working with computer games, you're sort of just dicking around. So
it's got to be a tough one for them to
work
around,
right? So they were telling me about this, and they were just such what do you call it? Like in Sweden, we call them fire souls. I mean, their souls were on fire for this. They're just so grassroots sort of guys working really hard to get like a whole nation to recognize video gaming as something that's really interesting and actually can be even good and get people to gather around that. So I was just going to meet this guy for 2 minutes, and we spent like an hour and a half just talking about everything. And then at the end, they said, "Well, if we put this together in 2014, would you mind coming down and lecturing?" And they were just so adorable, these guys. So I said, "Sure, whatever, let's do it." And I thought nothing would come of it, and so I went down there and talked to them, and it was fantastic because getting there, we met like. I had this whole presentation prepared that was sort of geared towards game developers. And there was a packed auditorium, so many people. And I was talking about game development. And then after a while, I realized a lot of these people don't look like game developers. And I don't mean like the stereotype with the ponytail.
Yeah.
And, you know, the real like bleak complexion or anything. But it was just, there were so many families and stuff there. So I sort of stopped myself and asked, how many of you are actually game developers? And like 5 hands shot in the air, right? Out of hundreds of people. So I said, okay, it seems like I've tailored this to the wrong audience, but it was still super interesting because everyone had a lot of questions. So when I got back this year, I mean, suddenly there's like 20 or 25 developers in the audience. And that means like there were 5 developers in Kuwait total last year. And it's grown 5-fold this year because everybody was there. And now you can sort of see what's happened in the year, and they've made huge strides. So I think it's really interesting.
That does actually sound really interesting. I'm now curious to actually talk to those people.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, because it's that type of stuff that intrigues me most about what's going on. That's why you became really, like, your company became really interesting, because you not only go around the world, but you and your fans.
Yeah.
You've got some really dedicated fans.
Yeah, we do. They're... And it's sort of, what do you call it in English? It sort of creates an obligation too. I mean, if you have people that dedicate themselves that much, that want to interact with us as much as they do, we're obligated to make great stuff, hopefully, and also hang out with them. As I enjoy talking to all of these people a lot more than they enjoy talking to me, I think. So yeah, remind me of that later. I'll make sure to hook you up with those guys at the GX Expo in Kuwait, because they're fabulous people, really.
Yeah, I'd love to interview him. I think that's definitely something fascinating to actually make a bit more, do some broadcasting on. But yeah, right. like I said, because not only are you your fans are really avid about the game, but the fact that they've gone out of their way and created not only cosplay as something as simple as that, but also making music videos.
Right.
But, when I saw that, it was kind of this, because you've talked about how Steam World is a franchise, it is a world, and with Heist coming out, you're going to start talking a bit more about the lore in it.
Yep.
Seeing how the fans have taken to it, and seeing how you're about to launch something that is a bit more story heavy. Is that something you're gearing up for? Are you ready for your fans to see more of the world?
Yeah, definitely, because it was one of those things in Dig where it was just where we fleshed it out and then we scaled it back really hard, because we thought at that point that the game isn't big enough to sort of sustain all this lore at this point. We have to, we need to sort of hold some of this back because it just doesn't become understandable. And now with Heist coming out, there's a lot more revealed. But again, we've sort of scaled it back because we realized that there are so many more games coming out. And so I think it's really interesting to have this universe where there are missing pieces, and you can sort of sit at home and speculate what is going on. How did this come about? And what are these characters? What is their backstory? So it's a lot more about SteamWorld in this game, but it's very far from everything. It's really interesting. It's like you sit on it. It's like an author coming up with a whole series of books. I can imagine. I mean, I'm not making any comparisons, of course, but J.K. Rowling or Rowling. I don't know. How do you pronounce that?
It's J.K. Rowling.
Rowling, all right. When she sort of sat in a coffee shop, in the beginning, and started writing these books about Harry Potter, and realized that, wow, all of my ideas are not going to fit into one book. I'll have to sort of portion it out. That's what those books are so excellent in that way too. I think that there's like new technology, so to speak, introduced in every new book. Like strange wizard things, how they work, and she's just sort of describing them in a matter-of-fact way. I think it's wonderful. It's in that sense, it's been the same because we've realized that there's so much to tell about this. So first, you look at Steamworld Heist, and there's so much story in it, and then say, okay, guys, we got to cut back because we have to save quite a bit of this for games to come, and it'll be more interesting if we can describe some of the things when they're in their proper chronology or setting. Yeah. So with that said, I think there's like we just did a word count, and it's the dialogue is more than 10 times as much as in Steamworld Dig, which sort of makes it not only a radically different game. We thought Steamworld Heist was only going to be, it's going to be a very different game. It's going to be a turn-based strategy shooter. But now it's sort of got a lot of those role-playing game RPG elements in there as well, with the characters being fleshed out to a certain point, and you upgrade them, etc. So it's kind of interesting in all directions.
Yeah, and with you mentioning other games, and with how you actually have progressed throughout the Steamworld series, will that type of progression of changing the genre continue in the later games? Is that something that you guys find as a good challenge for your team to like mix it up each time around?
That's a brilliant question, because you'd think that, okay, so now we made 3. This will be the 3rd game in the Steamworld series. The first one, a tower defense game. The second one, a mining platform adventure, and the third one, a turn-based strategy combat game. So what is the 4th one going to be? Like, is it going to be like a football game? So we've sort of the cool thing about Steamworld, I think, is that the next game can be anything. I think we can do something radically different. We can do something closer to home, and then you have to ask yourself, like, closer to home to what home, right? Yeah. What game is it gonna?
It's gonna have robots in it.
It's gonna have robots in it. It's most likely going to be a 2D game. That's all we know. Or actually, I should say, we know a bit more about what the next thing is going to be. But I think it's a later conversation, actually. Right now, at Gamescom, I threw it out. And then it's one of the things that I have to sort of get used to, that I tend to just say things, and then it gets repeated on internet. And people are not distorting it. They're actually just relating what I said. And I realized I should have kept my mouth shut. So right now, what I want to be doing, or what I really should be doing, is talk about Steamworld Heist. Let's say the next goodies.
I don't want to press you into revealing too much about the future. I found it fascinating with the 3 games that you currently, the 2 games you currently have out, and the 3rd one coming out later. Yep. That it was fascinating to see that you guys are willing to take that challenge of mixing it up each time. And as you say, like Steamworld Heist is a drastic change from how Steamworld Dig was.
Yeah.
And I would actually we'll finish more on this question. Like, how was that actual switch to go from a platforming digging game to a turn-based strategy game? How was that? Like, was there any like major struggles, or did you find it more or less flowed naturally into it?
I wish, right? But it's been challenges in so many different ways. I mean, there's a huge difference between enjoying turn-based games and making them great. I mean, I should just answer like a short thing first that you just touched on, and it's like that we've gone from one game to from one genre to another it might be a byproduct of having done the same type of games for so many years that we did. I mean, those edutainment games were so similar to each other in architecture and in the way they were built up that it's like what's a good analogy? Like if you're married to someone for a very long time, and you break up, you're probably going to be looking for something that's very, very different from your previous partner. Well, that maybe sucks, but it's like so.
I think the analogy holds up. It's a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
Yeah. So with the move from digging, which was obviously the first and only digging game that we made, now going to the first turn-based strategy shooting game that we've ever made, it's a huge leap, and I should also say that we develop everything in C++, which means that we have to sort of write every system from scratch ourselves. There's like we don't use. I'm not saying that Unity solves everything, that there's a module. It's like, oh yes, we're going to make please press the turn-based shooter button and we'll have that element. But yeah, we have to create everything from scratch. And I think we enjoy that quite a bit. It's fun to challenge yourself, or it's interesting. It makes the whole process interesting. It's not only about making the game fun to play, it's actually making the game work. So it's risky in a sense, because it would be the lowest risk would obviously have been to release Steamworld Dig 2 after Steamworld Dig. But as I was talking about at GDC, it was I think the risk you run there, if you're not a huge franchise, is that you're going to get stuck in that genre, and it'll be very hard to sort of move the franchise out of that genre afterwards. And if you release Steamworld Dig 2, which is not Halo 2 or like Call of Duty 2, means that probably not going to expand the number of players compared to the first one. So you're going to sell to a subset of those customers.
Yeah.
And besides, I think we're kind of allergic to that. Like, make that game. Okay, let's make a very similar game again after that. We do this every day. We want to have fun, or we want to have challenges in the office.
Yeah, and it definitely seems to fit in with your Blue Ocean analogy of, with each game, you're not sticking around in that area for very long, so no one can actually chase you or like keep with you. So it's interesting to see that, like, even I'm not sure if it was if it was part of like your Blue Ocean analogy, but it definitely seems to be like a good byproduct of it, that you're always finding that new ocean to like create that new audience to build up and create like new spots.
Yeah, right. And I think also there are a couple of fundamental things there as well. It's one is that there are a lot of players that tell themselves that no, it's not my type of game. I think if you're making a lot of different games in the same franchise, you're sort of leading or hand-holding them into different types of games. I think we have a lot of people who trust us now to make good games. That means that, okay, they're probably going to make a good game, and I don't usually like this genre, but since it's those guys, I'm gonna give it a shot. And it turns out that, hey, I really enjoy these types of games. Maybe they just had a sour experience in the past, right? And there's another thing as well. I can't remember who it was now, but I was talking to a bigger publisher who was having problems with a new title or a sequel in a franchise, and it was like number 5 or 6 or something like that. And they were getting so many negative comments about this new trailer that they had out for the latest sequel, and on YouTube, and it was like really, really negative. And somehow they managed to get hold of who these people were and said, listen, let's just sit down, have a beer and talk about this. It's like, why are you so unhappy? I say, why do you hate this franchise so much? And the surprising answer was, no, we actually love this franchise so much. But with this latest game, it seems like you're stepping away a little bit. And it's not what I was expecting to get. If you look at the previous installments in this franchise, they've been sort of similar to each other. This is also similar. It's the same mechanics and everything, but it has this element that I don't like, and I don't want you to make that game. So I'd rather rather scream like crazy on the internet so that you don't make this game, and give us something that I like instead. And that's kind of a strange sort of loyalty, I think. But it's a type of loyalty that you're entitled to if you really love something. I mean, like you, Alistair. Let's say that you're anything, right?
Yeah.
Your parents, they decide to become Mormons or something like that, and you don't really approve, right? Okay, I hope they're not, right?
No.
So you going in a different we make a whole point of going in a different direction. We're sort of risking we're risking it, and at the same time we're sort of taking away that risk. We're being very frank about this, saying that SteamWorld is a universe and it has Steam-driven robot characters. But inside that universe, anything can happen. It can be any type of premise for a game, but also any type of game mechanics or genre. So you expect the unexpected, if you like. Yeah. And then hopefully people will understand that, so we don't get these comments, oh, I'm so disappointed. This is so different from the last game.
Yeah. So finally, obviously, coming to the end now, Steamworld Heist will be coming out later this year on 3DS. Yep. And future consoles later on, you haven't announced those yet, so I'm not going to press you to say.
Actually, I can tell you exactly which consoles it'll come to. It'll come to the 3DS, and in no specified order. It's coming to the Wii U, PlayStation 4 and Vita, Xbox One, PC, Mac, and Linux, and mobiles and tablets as well.
All right.
And this mobiles and tablets, it's not going to be a watered down version of it. It's going to be the game. And we're going to have the balls to charge hefty, like decent money for it. It's not going to be a cheap game on mobile. We think we've made mobile games before, and I think we know the porting process well enough not to have a big obstacle bringing it to iOS and Google Play. And just because it's on mobiles and tablets, it's not a good enough reason to only charge like 10 or 20% of what you're charging everyone else. It means that I think we'll have a fairly smooth ride taking it to at least iOS, and then if we don't sell huge numbers there, it's I don't really care, you know. I think it's just great to have it out there because we think it's going to work really well with the touch input. It's SteamWorld Heist is going to be a fabulous tablet game, and so we want to make it. And I don't care if people don't buy it. I'm going to have it.
Making a game for yourself.
Well,
self-indulgent, but okay.
Well, it sounds a little ill thought through, but I really think that the game is going to be super awesome, also on tablets. So why not make it there? That's if I actually believe that there is still a population on mobiles and tablets who enjoy really, really great game experiences. I know, well, we both know that it's a fact. So I think it's just rude to everyone else that they're getting the same game, but they're only paying a small fraction of what the other guys are paying. I think it doesn't make sense.
Right. And finally, Just one little quick question, because it'll be fun for me to get an answer to this. Will you be at Game City in Nottingham this year?
Since I hadn't heard of it, I guess not. But
oh damn!
when
I
is it?
I thought I got you a few months ago to say yes, and
no, you got me. But when is it?
It's end of October, Halloween time. It's like the last week of October.
But I'm going to be in Paris Games Week at that
Fair
time.
enough.
I think. I'm glad I had an answer that is like, yeah, I'm going to hang my laundry on those. But
that's all right. No, that's all right. Anyway, thank you so much for the interview.
Oh, cheers and happy birthday, Alistair.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm amazed that you would like take the time to talk to a measly person like me on your special day.
Oh, so it's no problem. Like I say, I'm having a few drinks later, so yeah.
Wonderful. Well, have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye.